more for the flavor than for the heat, okay? What kind of influence we have in Peru? In Peru we have what is called comida criolla or criollo food, okay? What is exactly that means? That means a combination of different influence, cultures, people that it comes from outside and melt with our produce, with our vegetables. Peru is known to accept influence and make them their own, okay? For example, Spain, 1500. In the 1500, when Spain came to Peru to conquer, what did they brought? They brought the rice. The rice wasn't original from Peru. So that's when the potato meets the rice, and that's actually when we start writing our first chapter about what we see today as a Peruvian food. Even though the history is about 8,000 years, so it's up to the 1500 that we can see whatever is today, you know, in our dishes. They bring the rice, they bring the onion, they bring celery, and they bring ginger. 1789, France, again, French Revolution, chefs came to America. What did they bring with them? Techniques. Everything influenced, and then Chinese immigration, okay? That's probably the biggest immigration that we have. I'm actually descendant of a Chinese man. In 1849, the first group of Chinese came to Peru for three particular reasons: to pick up the cotton, to work in the sugar cane, and to work in the guano. Guano, again, it's in the islands. It works as a fertilizer. Okay, it's the excrement of the birds, like the cows. You know, so they came for those three reasons. After 50 years, they end up their contracts, and many of them stayed. So some of them moved to the coast, and they start opening restaurants. So they brought the wok, they brought the soy sauce, they found the potato, they found the rice, and they start with a big flames, big range, you know, wok range, and the wok, they start making what is called today in Peru, chifa. What's a chifa? Chifa is not really Chinese food. Chinese food is what we have here, which is extremely similar to what they have in China. Chifa is a technique, okay? A technique that the Chinese brought into Peru, and then they melt it with the Peruvian vegetable, the Peruvian products. You find chifas in Peru probably in every single corner. Every single corner, you have your own chifa. Like, I would say we have more chifa than sushi places right here, which is many. I mean, there's chifas all over the place, and you have your favorite, and it keeps growing and growing and growing. Then, you can say Peruvian style Chinese food, exactly. Yeah, because it's a Chinese technique with Peruvian food. But again, the dishes that you will find here, you won't find it in China. You know, and you can talk to people actually that it came from China, especially with the techniques, and they start applying, they're creating the No, it's Chinese people that they first came, and they start working with our products, and you know, then their next generations keep on, you know, pushing that, okay? And after that, Chinese, then we have a big influence of the Japanese, okay? We know Japanese, they're known for working so hard. They just came over, and they took over some of the restaurants that the Chinese people was living in the 1900, the beginning of 1900, because they were actually going back to China. So they took over, and that's where we have the Chinese influence, the Japanese influence into our culture too. Okay, out of the tradition, unfortunately I cannot show you the pictures, but I make what is called, I put it today to present what is called a pachamanca. What's a pachamanca? Pacha meaning soil, manca meaning pot. So it's actually a pot made out of the soil. So what you basically do until today's day is you dig a hole, and then you actually hit rocks. Like I think in Hawaii they do something with the pork, you know, something similar to it, okay? Basically, you hit the rock for at least 2-3 hours, and I actually was involved in the process of this. It takes about 5 to 6 hours to make one pot that it will feed probably 80 people. And it's basically you want to cook right with the rock, hard rocks, and then after you put layer of potato, layer of meats, layer of veggies, you cover it with corn husks, and then you cover it with banana leaves, and then you cover it with some pieces of fabric. Let me show you right here. Everything was something like this. You cover it right there, and then after you cover it like that, you put back the dirt that you actually took to make the hole. You put it back on top, and you let it cook for an hour. So again, I was there from the beginning all the way to the end, and it's amazing. You know, the flavors. It's really, really good. Again, it's a lot of labor involved, but I mean, it's a tradition that they keep until today. This particular man Mr. Hugo, he is 4 generations doing this, and he's passing it through his sons, and he was teaching me a lot of stuff. I mean, it's really, really good. By the end, you have a very nice piece of meat, tender. I mean, it falls from the bone. The flavor is, I mean, I cannot even tell you. I mean, you really have to taste it. I see it nowadays, they do it in a pot. They do it in a pot, just a big pot, but it doesn't taste the same. I mean, nothing like being, the real stuff. Basically, history about Peruvian dishes. How are we opening to the world? Unfortunately, I would say unfortunately, until about 10, 15 years ago, Peru wasn't known for food. I mean, was known. You say Peru, probably the first thing that popped into your mind was Machu Picchu. That was it, Machu Picchu. Today, there are chefs that are actually really doing a very, very, very nice job with the food, and they're opening to the world, and they're saying, look, we're here, we got everything what it takes to be in the high ranks, I mean, competing with other countries for our food, and they're working really hard. There's more than 12,000 restaurants right now in just